Welcome back to Canada Tonight. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in Philadelphia today speaking at an international union convention. Trudeau highlighted Canada's trade ties with the U.S. ahead of the presidential election. As the Prime Minister tries to garner support abroad, here at home, Trudeau faces a crisis of his own, staring down slumping polls with a federal election looming large. To help make sense of the challenges ahead for the Liberals, we turn our spotlight tonight on Stephen Maher, author of this upcoming biography about Trudeau. Stephen Maher joins me now. So, Stephen, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm really looking forward to getting into this book. The first thing I want to talk to you about, though, is the title, and if you can unpack that a little for me. The Prince, the Turbulent Reign of Justin Trudeau.
Well, thanks for having me. The Prince, when I was first asked to look at writing a book, the idea about Justin Trudeau, the idea popped in my head. It's something I've been saying about him for some time, is that he's a kind of a princely character. In that, if you look at his childhood, he's very different from other recent prime ministers of Canada, and that he grew up in the seat of power. As I started to research the book, I found instances of both his mother, his wife, and his brother referring to him as a prince. He used to be known as Le Dauphin. And I originally thought about using that as a title, but then I thought, well, English Canadians would think it was written in French, so I decided that wouldn't work. He has a kind of princely character in that he has princely confidence. You might say that he has princely vanity, princely courage, and princely capriciousness, so that his character, it's a useful sort of frame to understand this person who is not by background and by experience like most of the people we've met in our lives.
You did this interview with him back in February, and you also interviewed 200, of his closest inner circle and outer circle, I guess, as well. What was the thing that struck you most in that interview that you did with him?
Well, it had been years since I'd been in the same room with him, and I was struck by how well prepared he was, what a vigorous and energetic presence he has. That's one of those things that people who haven't been around him are often struck by. He works hard. He had obviously prepared for the interview. I wasn't trying to stump him with tough questions because I didn't think that would help me get good stuff for the book.
Right.
So it appeared to me that he was trying to establish rapport, trying to think carefully about answers that would be useful. I was impressed in a way by the game that he brought to that event. And that matches what you hear about him from people who work with him. He shows up, he's ready, he does his homework, and he makes an impression.
Where along the way do you think that the Prime Minister began losing the real popularity that he had at the beginning when he first became Prime Minister?
Well, there was a sort of succession of things. The first thing I felt was his ill-advised holiday trip after a bit more than a year in office to the Aga Khan's Island in the Caribbean. That showed bad judgment, I thought. This is something that I've written about in the book, that it was a trip he made against the advice of his advisors. Then he had a trip to India that went badly, where he was a sort of figure of fun in Indian media because of all the costume changes, and he had a convicted terrorist invited to an event, and all the while, I believe that Modi, the leader of India, was kind of sandbagging him and
right.
trying to make him look bad. Then you had SNC-Lavalin. So, and that was a really severe blow, the most severe blow, because it sort of pierced his mask of affability. The idea that he's a nice man and an ethical person, in that he seemed to be gaslighting an Indigenous cabinet minister. And it also cost him a number of senior people who were helpful to his government. So that was sort of, you had a sort of 1, 2, 3 combination there of things that chipped away at his connection to the Canadian public.
He's certainly determined to stay on for this next election. And I wonder, you know, in your time speaking to him, what you can tell me about his personality that you know, despite the polling right now, despite the Conservatives looking like they're ahead, that he thinks that he can turn this around. Well,
that was certainly the impression he gave me. He said that the reason he's in politics is for big fights like this, and the difference between he and Pierre Poilievre couldn't be clearer, and he wants to take that to the Canadian people. And he convinced me that that's what he believes. Since then, though, things seem to not be getting better. They brought out a budget that was an opportunity to reconnect with some of the voters that they need, and it does not appear to have done so. One thing I would remind viewers is that Mr. Trudeau is a very practiced and disciplined political communicator. And if he was hedging his bets, he could not afford to say so. He couldn't say, well, you know, I'm going to see how it goes with the budget, see if I have a shot or who else might want to run. So it's one of those examples of politics where, from politics, where politicians are sort of trapped in a message box. And Justin Trudeau cannot afford to show any doubt about his political future.
And so what is your assessment after writing this book, after doing all of the interviews that you have done, and knowing the political climate in this country right now, whether or not you know, we can expect Justin Trudeau to be the Prime Minister once again next election?
After the next election, I would not rate his prospects highly at the moment. Anything can happen in an election. He is a formidable campaigner. And Mr. Poilievre, I think, has unexploited vulnerabilities. But so many Canadians are focused on sort of Trudeau fatigue that it gets to be hard to imagine how he could come through an election and win again. But we don't know at this time for sure that he's going to run again.
You don't
and
think
things
so?
could be completely different. Well, we just don't know, right? He is not able to say anything but what he is saying, which is that he's determined to run again.
Do you see a scenario? Do you see a scenario where he could perhaps step aside for somebody else in the party?
Well, it's entirely possible. Yeah. And in my talks with Liberals, you know, I was working on this book for a year and a half,
right?
And so I'm on the phone with them all the time, and there's inevitably kind of gossip about this. And you have sort of a couple different kinds of Liberals. You have the blue Liberals and people who were never huge fans, and they would be saying that they hope he goes. And then you have the people who are, you know, members of Team Justin and think that there's no doubt that he's the best candidate. But then you have another group who are grateful to him and loyal to him, and also think that maybe the party would be better off changing things up now. So behind the scenes, there is a more of a division of opinion than it might appear on the surface.
The book is The Prince, The Turbulent Reign of Justin Trudeau. The author, Stephen Maher. We appreciate the time. So little time to chat here, but I do hope that you come back on Canada Tonight again.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.